Okay, everybody, I want to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. Thank you for being with us this morning. My name is Harold Ford. I'm going to serve as your worship associate. I'm the worship associate that goes off script from time to time. I've been a member of this church for over 40 years, about half of its existence since it was founded in the year 1930. No, I'm not the minister, okay? But I have to tell you that yesterday was a very prideful day for me and members of the Mott Community College family. This year is the 100th anniversary of Mott Community College, and they had their graduation yesterday. They filled up the Dort Arena over on the east side of Flint. The entire floor and all of the seats were filled with graduates. No, I'm not a graduate this year. I graduated 55 years ago, but what they did, because this is their centennial year, they honored graduates from past decades. And 8 of the 10 decades were represented there by about 20 people, including me. So thank you for letting me say a few words about Mott Community College, my former alma mater. Our ministers are the Reverends Lynn and Jerry Kerr, sitting right up there if you're new to our congregation. And it's off script, I know, but I need to brag on Lynn and Jerry for their social justice activism. They were on the sidewalk with about 15 of us other UUs this last Tuesday on a cold and wet evening, standing on the side of love in opposition to an anti-Semitic, anti-LGBT, election-denying right-wing minister. And I tell you, that's in the finest tradition of the ministers since I've been in this church over these 40 years, beginning with Reverend Charlotte Cowton, Lisa Friedman, David Carl Olson, Deanie Oliva, and others. They stand with that tradition of standing on the side of love. Thank you for doing that, Lynn and Jerry. I was there as sort of a second shifter. I came in late, left late. Lynn gave me that cardboard sign that's right beneath the podium here. And you could not hear what that minister was saying because there was a loud bus with its motor running. But I crept closer to the tent where he was speaking, and I heard this in a very loud and booming voice. I won't try to replicate it, I'll do it a little bit. I expel every demonic spirit in this house. I interpreted that as my sign to leave, and I did. I want to acknowledge one more thing, and that is that this church is built upon the land that once belonged to the Anishinaabe peoples, as well as the Subway sandwich shop down the street, the Great Divide, the Flint Community Players next door, all are built on land once the possessions of the Anishinaabe peoples. So I would like to share some announcements. If you would like more information about Unitarian Universalism or our congregation, you can obviously talk to one of our ministers, Lynn or Jerry. Their contact information can be found at uuflint.org. And if you are a visitor today, you can get our weekly email newsletter. You can go to our website, or you can scan the QR code on the back of your order of service. I've never done that in my life, but I'm told you can do that. It's like magic to me. Or in your seat backs, there's a card, and you can fill out your information, okay? And I think there are supposed to be some slides that appear now connected to the announcement that I made about Lynn and Jerry being at that demonstration this last week. Slide 14, or the slide which shows 14 of us.
It was up there.
Oh, it was up there, okay. I was paying attention to you and not the TV monitors. 14 people, might have been 15 after I got there, joined that demonstration of standing on the side of love against the anti-LGBT, anti-Semitic, and election-denying preacher. His name is Greg Locke, by the way. I even loathe to say his name, frankly. And you can check out other announcements on the back of your order of service. And I think with that now, I've completed my announcement and welcoming duties. And so now we're going to light the chalice. And I see Reverend Jerry is going to step forward and have the honor of doing that. And as he lights the chalice, I say these words. We light our chalice in recognition of the beauty and uniqueness of every flame that is lit in every UU community this morning and every flower that graces an altar. And by the way, this morning's flower service event is one of my favorite ceremonies in the UU faith tradition. Will you now please join me in reciting our covenant, which should appear, it is on the screen right now, recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service. We gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice. Thank you very much. You sound great.
Let us give thanks for a bouquet of people. We give thanks for children. Like tulips and iris, they multiply among us, ever more filled with color, beauty, and new life. We give thanks for generous friends, as constant in bloom as echinacea, and whose gifts lift up our body and spirit. We give thanks for surprising friends who at first glance seem dour and then blossom into joy as quickly as forsythia. We give thanks for comfortable friends, their gentle presence as soothing as the sweet smell of lilacs. For stormy weather friends who stand by us in hard times, like lilies of the valley that cannot be deterred by shade or shadow. For loving friends who wind around us like wisteria and embrace us despite our blights, wilts, and witherings. And finally, for forget-me-not friends, gone but never forgotten. Their beauty lives on in our memories and hearts. For this bouquet of people who brighten our lives, each in their own way, we give thanks. And as an introduction to our next hymn, the words and melodies of this hymn were written by the founder of the Flower Communion, Norbert Chopik. They have been translated into English and adapted into this familiar song with its questions and images of earth's beauty.
I'm your song leader today. I'm Edie Robbins. It's on page 8 of the hymnal, if you have it or need it.
After our words of meditation today and after our time of silence, you'll be invited to come forward and light a candle of joy or concern if you like. And you can also do that at the back of the sanctuary. And you're also welcome to write in our booklet there, and your joy or concern will be put in our weekly e-update. In the presence of these flowers, these representatives of creation's profound beauty, diverse and unique, but related and interdependent, May they remind us of grace we have known in days past, forgiveness we have been granted and provided, love unearned and shared, recovery begun and established, generosity unforeseen and most sacred. And may they inspire us now and in the days to come to seek, to notice, to embrace, and to recreate beauty, to give unto the world as exuberantly as these flowers. Our spiritual support this morning turns especially to our brothers and sisters around the world. For those in Ukraine who do not know peace. For those Russian soldiers who have no choice but to fight. For the humanitarian crisis in Sudan that we often forget is made up of human faces. For the Ugandan LGBTQ citizens whose lives are in constant danger. For the many refugees who seek a safe place to live, especially at our own southern border. For the deaths around the world caused by natural disasters, killing thousands. For every tragedy that humans could prevent, but do not. For the Unitarians of Prague and the Czech Republic, who maintain the vision of Norbert Chopik, the vision which calls us to the flower communion today. May the meaning and the message of today's flower ceremony be alive in our hearts and guide us towards right relationship with all our neighbors, near and far. Let us enjoy the silence. Amen.
A lot of drama unfolds outside our windows around springtime. While all of us are witness to the early spring flowers, and we have some here, and the budding trees, at our house, we have the special privilege of watching both resident waterfowl mating rituals and some migrating flocks gracing our lake and surrounding marsh. And perhaps due to climate change, we seem to have a much more diverse crew this year. Along with the year-round mallards and the Canada geese, we had greater numbers of buffleheads and wood ducks, and for the first time we saw mergansers and scops and ringneck ducks. And then, of course, we had the lone loon and kingfisher and great blue heron visiting us as well. So we're very lucky. But the real excitement happens as the Canada geese and the resident swans begin to nest. So this year, for the first time, a second swan pair thought that the lake looked big enough for 2 swan families. Not so. After a week of daily arguments with wings flopping all over the place and honks and all kinds of arguments, the interlopers finally left. But then 2 geese decided to build their nest a bit too close to the swan's nest for their liking. And we watched as those swans were constantly patrolling past the goose nest, back and forth, and they had their feathers held really high and they were fluffed up to demonstrate their displeasure. Well, the geese stood their ground until those eggs hatched. And just last week, those 5 little goslings met the world. And they also met one of the swans as they were out on their first walk. And that's them. Well, we haven't seen that goose family since. Now, humans usually cannot choose their neighbors, but when you are a swan with their partner on a 15-acre lake and have enough determination, apparently that's a totally different thing. But our lives are different, and especially in our congregations. For the most part, we can choose the people that we interact with. We discover a church, we decide we like it, like Harold, we stay 40 years, we become members perhaps, and let's assume that for the last 93 years or so, people stick around. And maybe it's because something spoke to them, or maybe they made long-lasting friendships here. Or like a lot of you use report, maybe they just found a place where other people thought like they did. Whatever the reason, people here felt that this community had room for them and for anyone else who decided to come here, and they felt welcome. There were no big swans out there causing a ruckus. I imagine that's what it was like in Prague, Czechoslovakia, when Norbert Čapek, the founder of our flower celebration, started a Unitarian church in 1922. First, realize that it had been a long time since the Czech people could choose to worship at any institution outside a Roman Catholic church. Suddenly, there was a spiritual reawakening, and Norbert Čapek knew it was an opportune time to start a liberal religious community in his country where anyone would be welcome. Of course, it was not a coincidence that Čapek founded a Unitarian church. He had been interested in pursuing a religious career since boyhood. For 8 years, he had served as an acolyte, which is an assistant to the priest in his Catholic church of his mother's, since he had been 10 years old. But at the age of 18, he had finally become disillusioned by the priest's persistent complaining about their work and about the parishioners and about the Pope. He finally left and decided to try his hand at tailoring, which is what his father did. He didn't enjoy it, and he wasn't good at it. So he decided to try it out for a little bit longer, and he went to another city to be a tailor's apprentice. But while in that other city, he discovered the Baptists, the Slavic Baptists. Now, intellectually, Chapek found them much more appealing than the Catholics. I'm not going to say any more about that. But he liked them, so he quit tailoring and went to seminary. Now, as a minister, he also dabbled in church-related missionary work, journalism, and he composed hymns. And that work really seemed to suit him. But as he became increasingly liberal, the theology did not work out. But in a stroke of luck, he met a Unitarian professor who would later become the president of Czechoslovakia. Now, this meeting truly opened Chapek's eyes and heart, but he continued on as a Baptist minister. Well, then World War I broke out, and Chapek learned that the Austrian authorities were about to arrest him because of his anti-Catholic writing. He and his wife Maya escaped to the U.S. immediately, and he pastored a Slavic Baptist church in New Jersey for about 3 years. Well, once the war ended, his old Unitarian professor, who was a Unitarian, also became the president of the new Czechoslovakia, and Chapek was invited to build a liberal church in Prague. To raise enough money, he and his wife sold their home in New Jersey and rented an apartment for a year to try to save up. And they also became members of a Unitarian church. Now, this is what Chapek said about that church. I found not only clear heads, but warm hearts, too. I liked the deep and inspiring sermons. I enjoyed the sweet music. I loved to join in the buoyant, light-winged singing of the congregation. But above all, I liked what is so difficult to describe, what is more than a friendly smile, more than a kind word of greeting. It is that personal touch of a soul that has vision. It is the heart of religion in the heart of the congregation. Obviously, he liked the Unitarians. During this time, the Chapeks also courted the American Unitarian Association, again, the precursor of the UUA today, called the AUA. And they asked them if they would financially support a Unitarian church in Prague. Well, you might say the rest is history. They agreed to help them. And the British Unitarians agreed to help them financially as well. They went back to Prague, and within 1 year of opening, over 3,000 people were attending the church, and over 200 children were enrolled in their Sunday school. And that was their Czechoslovakian symbol for their Unitarian church. It was on the anniversary of the fellowship's founding, June 24th, 1923, that Chapek held the first flower celebration, as they called it. Chapek described the celebration to the president of the AUA in a letter. This is what he wrote. We are trying to find new expressions of our religious life very slowly and carefully. We have made a new experiment in symbolizing our liberty and brotherhood in a service which was so powerful and impressive that I never experienced anything like it. The most dry and rationalistic members were moved, and many an eye brightened through tears. I put emphasis on the individual character of each member flower as a foundation of our fellowship. Then I emphasized our common cause, our belonging together as one spiritual community. Well, for 18 years, there was standing room only in that Prague congregation of liberal religious fellowship, as they were called. They prospered. Then, in 1941, while Maya was in America for speaking engagements to rally support for their church after the Nazis had invaded, both Norbert and his daughter Zora were arrested by the Gestapo. They were arrested for treason and for listening to foreign broadcasts on the radio, because Norbert had just received a radio from his board of trustees at his birthday party, his 70th birthday party. After months of imprisonment and a trial, an appeal looked as though it was going to be successful, and everyone was very hopeful that they would be released. Zora served for 18 months in a labor camp, and then she was released. Unfortunately for Norbert, timing was not on his side. The Czech underground, with Great Britain's help, had planned and successfully assassinated SS General Reinhard Heydrich. Čapek's appeal reached the Gestapo headquarters in Prague just after Heydrich died. Like so many other intellectuals at the time, Čapek was treated harshly. Rather than being released, as had been planned, the case officer wrote on his appeal, "Send this prisoner to Dachau. His return is unwanted." Čapek arrived at Dachau on July 5th, 1942. It is said that he held a flower ceremony there with fellow prisoners, using whatever weeds that they could gather, before he was gassed in October the same year. His wife did not learn of his fate until after the war. She became a minister in Massachusetts, where she introduced the flower communion to America. Although Čapek wrote over 90 hymns and poems, very few have survived. The Gestapo destroyed much of his papers the day that he was arrested in Prague. But we are fortunate that we do have some of his sermons, his hymns, letters, and of course, most importantly, the flower ritual that has lived on for 100 years. Beauty calls us together is the theme of this 100th anniversary of the flower communion. I believe that Čapek would have liked it because he saw each beautiful flower as a representative of each individual in the church, and he said that the vase was like the church itself. As this was the centennial of this ceremony, I wanted to know more about the history behind this. In the 20-odd years that I have participated in flower communions, I realized that I had mostly seen people walk up to the altar and choose a flower from the vase during the ceremony. And they choose whatever one appeals to them. Well, I discovered in my research that it is not completely in keeping with the original spirit of the ritual to do so. The minister who currently leads the Prague Unitarian congregation, the same church that Čapek founded, says that it's important that one does not pick a flower that they like. Instead, participants should receive a flower We accept a flower in whatever form it comes, just as we accept one another in our religious community. If we get a branch with barbs, he says, we work with it. In fact, the Prague minister said that he has been known to bring nettles to his flower celebration day because as the church is a microcosm of the world, we often run into things that sting us. We must learn to work around things that will challenge us. Unlike the swans in our lake, Chopik believed that accepting the flowers we receive demonstrate acceptance of each other as brothers and sisters, acknowledging that everyone can be our friend. Despite assorted colors, aromas, or even thorns, when we are put together in our common vessel, the church, we are all beautiful and filled with love. Chopik said of his first flower celebration, "Nobody dares to say anymore that Unitarians are so rational as to have nothing for our hearts." Unitarian Universalism is a living faith tradition, meant to grow and change with the wisdom and knowledge of the times and with the life experiences of our congregation's members. We come to this faith from many places, some of us without formal religious training, some after years spent with other religious paths and practices. Norbert Chopik brought a rich life of religious scholarship and service to the Unitarianism of his time. In our next song, Chopik's Journey, we hear his heartfelt search for a faith of integrity that could also serve the needs of his people. Listen for the compelling refrain, "Something didn't feel right in my head or in my heart. I knew that reason and love are the only place to start."
The candles, the incense, the rituals. As an altar boy loved to play my part. The mysteries of religion, my passion. Love of learning was deep in my heart. But as I learned, I questioned. The priests were not the saints I expected. Rome came to Slavic lands unbidden. There was much they taught I rejected. Something didn't feel right in my head or in my heart. I knew that reason and love are the only place to start. Wanted freedom, respect for my heritage, to decide for myself what to believe. The Catholic Church shut down Christians, so I knew it was time to leave. The brethren my father embraced believed in a religion of deeds. rigid creeds. Something didn't feel right in my head or in my heart. I knew that reason and love were the only place to start. Baptist came closer to filling my longing. Didn't ask me to shut off my mind. The Bible is a human creation. We can treasure the wisdom we find. Apply the tales to our daily lives as missionaries spread the word. Choose to be baptized when we're ready and build God's kingdom on earth. One where all feels right in my head and in my heart. I know that reason and love are the only place to start. We need a new kind of religion based on freedom and love and reason, grounded in a history not imposed, free from Rome and free for Jesus. My head says there's one God, not three. My heart tells me that God loves us all. My soul grounds me in my native country, so I'll build a new church on our soil. One where all feels right in my head and in my heart. I know that reason and love are the only place to start.
These words I offered as a meditation over the flowers before their distribution. In the name of what is holy, in the name of what is good, in the name of that which gives life, we have gathered here in this place today. We have been given life to live under the aspect of eternity, for that is the source of happiness. To work on ourselves and bring happiness into our lives, to be as valid as possible to others with whom we are connected by invisible relationships. You, the flowers, remind us of the wonderful simplicity of the natural order, and that we too are a part of it. You remind us of the beauty and harmony of diversity. You remind us that one can feel and perceive and live unity in diversity, and diversity in unity. Let the spirit of creative life unite us as it reigns among us.
Let us enter into the communion of flowers with joyful hearts. The following words were spoken by Norbert Chopik on the occasion of the first flower celebration on June 24th, 1923. Each of us will receive a different flower. Let that flower speak for you. The vase is a symbol of our church organization. We need it to help us share the beauties, but also the responsibilities of our communal life. In the proper community, by giving the best that is in us for the common good, we grow up and are able to do what no single person is able to do. Each of us needs to receive in order to grow up, but each of us needs to give something away for the same reason. The flowers, and those of us who hold them, are travelers upon the earth, traveling together through our all too brief lifetimes. Therefore, let our moments be bountiful. Let us rejoice in our unique colors, aromas, and sounds. Let us celebrate together in love, that as we travel away, we take with us the memory of golden hours together among the flowers.
We've come to that part of our service. It's called a time for generosity in your order of service. I like to think of it as a time for the 3 T's, and that is time, talent, and treasure. There are a lot of ways to give to this place. I mentioned Mott College being around for 100 years. This church has been around for 90 years. And previous generations have made its existence possible because they gave time, talent, and treasure. And I think it's our obligation as Unitarian Universalists, if we want to ensure that 90 years from now this church is still here, to give time, talent, and treasure. By the way, Lynn and Jerry, this is one of my favorite services. I want to be reminded of our heroes, our martyrs, like Norbert Chapek, who gave their lives for this faith tradition, or Michael Servetus, our first martyr, 470 years ago, almost 500 years ago, gave their lives to make, he gave his life to make this faith tradition possible. He rejected the Trinity and believed in a Unitarian concept. Anyway, if you have time and talent, that might be, if you have musical talent, our music leaders are looking for you. Committee work, gardening, painting, plumbing, cleaning, teaching children, doing this job, worship associate duties. If you want to invest those things in this church, if you're short of treasure, then please be willing to consider to do that, to make sure that in 90 years we're still here. Now, the offering that we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit, it's an opportunity to recommit to this place and to the people here and the people who will be here in the future. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something that we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of this faith tradition. May our offering help us practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation. We will joyfully accept your offering at the back of the church. We don't pass around a plate anymore. Rather, you can use an envelope like this, insert something in there, a check or a few dollars. I make a annual pledge to this church every year. I think it's generous. So do some of the rest of you. But at moments like this, I like to put my commitment where my mouth is, and so I usually make an extra contribution. I don't think that's grandstanding. I think it's role modeling. All gifts of treasure, time, and talent are gratefully accepted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harold. Much has changed, of course, in the 100 years since that very first flower celebration, but our commitment to the values it embodies grows ever stronger as we continue to shape this faith that fiercely and gently calls forth beauty and kinship. Chapek's spirit of courage and commitment lives on in every single one of us. May your flowers and these flowers remind us of the abiding beauty that calls us together and calls us to greater love every day.
And let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.
You belong among the wildflowers. You belong in a boat by the sea. Sail away, kill off the hours. You belong somewhere you feel free. Run away, go find a lover. Go away somewhere all bright and new. I have seen no other who compares with you. You belong among the wildflowers. belong in a boat by the sea. You belong with your love on your arm. You belong somewhere you feel free. Run away, go find a lover. Run away, let your heart be your guide. You deserve the deepest cover. You belong in that home by and by. You belong among the wildflowers. You belong somewhere close to me, far away from your troubles and worries. You belong somewhere you feel free. You belong somewhere you